superhuman activities, but as far as we are concerned, what can we understand? Okay, text 41. Please read. Who was reading?
Neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. So, what can others who are born after us know about Him? Even the first incarnation of the Lord, namely Sesa, has not been able to reach the limit of such knowledge, although he is describing the qualities of the Lord with 10 hundred faces.
Okay, so Shesha is describing the Lord with 10 hundred faces. So here it said Adi Deva Shesha. So even he, with his 10 hundred faces, is trying to describe Dasha Shata Anana. Dasha Shata Anana. One was 10 hundred faces. So even he is not able to completely describe the glories of the Supreme Lord. And here Lord Brahma is saying, neither I nor all the sages born, even we cannot describe completely the glories of the Lord. So in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, second verse, what does Krishna say? 10th chapter, second verse. Na me na vidu suragana na maharshaya na me vidu suragana. So he says all the suragana, that means devatas, they cannot understand. Na maharsha, even the great rishis cannot understand. Okay, somebody may say devatas cannot understand because they're having too much of sense gratification. Very difficult to understand. But what about the rishis? The rishis should be able to understand. No? What is the problem? Why they also cannot understand?
Limited.
Why they're limited? What is the limitation? Okay, so what's the cause?
Mercy or without mercy of God.
No, they are great rishis. They should get mercy.
But they are more dependent on their sense control.
Rishis are not dependent on their own senses.
They can understand only the Paramatma feature of the Lord at max. So in that sense, they can only realize or understand.
What?
Because the limit Ashtanga Yoga and they can
Okay.
the Paramatma.
So the answer is right over here. Neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. So what can others who are born after us know about Him? You got the answer? So in that 10.2 commentaries, the acharyas explain that because everyone is born after the Lord, just like if a child wants to know about the birth of his father, can he know? Anyway, Sarvam Pro was telling a joke. So he was telling one child was seeing the album of his parents. But that, क्या है बोल?
Where am I in the album?
So the child is asking, अरे मेरा photo नहीं है यहाँ पे? So that is all photos of their marriage. अरे तो पैदा भी नहीं हुआ. So this is the same situation. So because everyone is born after the Lord, unless the Lord reveals, they cannot understand. Whether they may be devatas or sages or anyone. So therefore here, who is speaking? Here who is speaking? Brahma is speaking. He is first created living being. But he says even I cannot understand. And everyone else is born after Brahma, correct? Then how they can understand? So therefore, the point is, understanding the Lord is not so easy. Even Anant Shesh cannot understand. So then, the next question arises, So who can understand? So text 42 is an important one. येषां स एष भगवान् दयेत् अनन्त सर्वात्मनाश्रितपदो यदि निर्व्यधिकम् ते दुस्तरामतितरन्ति च देवमायां नैषां ममाहमिति स्वस्मृतालभक्षे. But anyone who is specifically favored by the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, due to unalloyed surrender unto the service of the Lord, can overcome the insurmountable ocean of illusion and can understand the Lord. But those who are attached to this body, which is meant to be eaten at the end by dogs and jackals, cannot do so. Okay, so who can understand? Yes, so yesham means only those. Yesham saha esha bhagavan dayayet daya. जिस पर भगवान दया दिखाते हैं. So only unto those the Lord avoid. So to that degree, then Krishna reveals himself. By the grace of Yogamaya, helps the surrendered soul to know him proportionately with the advance of one's surrender. So therefore, we have to be very clear on this point. That, of course, previously Brahmaji said, even we cannot understand. Even we cannot understand. But then here he says, yes, to the degree one surrenders, one can understand. So therefore, knowing the Lord, understanding the Lord, and ultimately developing love for the Lord is not a matter of scholarly knowledge. It's not by one's scholarship that one can know. One can understand. No. So one could be great scholar in the scriptures, but that does not mean one will know. And I think so in one of our previous classes we discussed about that. PhD in Jaydev Goswami's Geet Govind, right? We told, no? Huh? How many remember? आचार्य प्रभु बताओ माइक दे दो क्या सुना अच्छा ठीक है अरे ये क्या हो गया पास ऑन नहीं करने वाला हाँ बताओ
Present who has done this PhD in Jaydev Goswami Geet Govind. So he was telling that how Krishna is doing all these immoral activities to Maharaj. And Maharaj asked him that whether he had Bhagavad Gita or not.
Okay, ठीक है. So anyway, so we'll put a little masala there. So this person who has done a PhD in Jaydev Goswami's Geet Govind, so he came to meet one of our ISKCON devotees, and so he was telling that, no, this is Jaydev Goswami's Geet Govind. This is no ordinary scripture. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would relish hearing this. And so he said, I know all the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, in and out. अरे तब तो PhD मिला ना, नहीं तो कैसे मिलेगा? How so he said, everything he knows. So he said, after reading all these activities of Radha and Krishna, knowing them thoroughly, I fail to understand how you people can worship such a person as the Supreme Lord. अभी वो conclusion निकला, वो सब पढ़ने को. So what he understood? Just a theoretical exercise for the PhD. That's all. And there are many such scholars in India. Professor Kotowski, Prabhupada always speaks about Professor Kotowski. He was what? So he was a professor of what? Yes, Indology. That means all Indian religions. He was a big professor there. But still, what was his conclusion?
After the body.
After this body, everything is finished. That was his conclusion. So therefore, simply by reading scriptures and becoming a scholar does not mean much. Unless that is accompanied by what? Surrender. Surrender to whom? Not to one's mind. Surrender to Guru and Krishna. So, unless that is there, because devotional service is a matter of revelation. Otherwise, what can we understand with our blunt material mind and senses? Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Sevon Mukehi Jivvado Swayam Eva Spurutya Katha. Krishna reveals himself when one is surrendered. When one performs devotional service, Sevon Mukhi. When one performs devotional service by which the senses are purified, then Krishna reveals himself. That is the way one can understand. And so therefore, here Brahma is telling that yes, all these people can understand because of their surrender. So the Lord is knowable only by one who is a surrendered soul. Here in Brahmaji, the greatest of all material living beings acknowledges the truth. Okay, and the last sentence we said. Proportionately with the advance of one surrender. And on the other hand, we know the well-known story of the South Indian Brahmana Sri Rangam. He was illiterate. Everyone knows that, correct? Absolutely illiterate. But still, he got the certificate from the Supreme Lord himself. What? You are the actual knower of the Bhagavad. So why? So why Krishna gave the certificate?
He followed because.
Yes, follow the instructions of his Guru. That's all. And so in text 46 now he says that if one is surrendered, then there is no other qualification required. If one is surrendered, no other qualification is required. So therefore here in the next verse he says, surrendered souls even from groups leading sinful lives, such as women, the labor class, the mountaineers, and the Siberians, or even birds and beasts. Stri, Shudra, Hona, Shabara, Api, Papajiva. So even the Papajivas, like all these people, even they, by their surrender, it is possible. Can also know about the signs of Godhead and become liberated from the clutches of the illusory energy by surrendering unto the pure devotees of the Lord and by following in the footsteps in devotion. So this is very similar to the Kiratamanandapur and the Purvishavas. So here an important statement Prabhupada writes, the personality of Godhead may not be present before one's eyes, but if one is sincere in wanting such guidance, the Lord will send a bona fide person who can guide one properly back home, back to Godhead. And further down he says, but in the devotional service of the Lord, so Prabhupada is saying in the outside world, some qualification may be required. So in the material world, when one accepts some particular type of service, he is required to possess some particular type of qualification also. Without this, one is unfit for such service, right? One wants to work in some company, some degree is required, engineering, whatever. But in the devotional service of the Lord, the only qualification required is surrender. And then the next statement is very important. Surrendering oneself is in one's own hands. If one likes, he can surrender immediately without delay, and that begins his spiritual life. So surrender depends upon whom? One's own hands. It's not dependent on something else. That choice is mine. How much I want to surrender, that is my choice. And based upon that, then Krishna will reciprocate. Iyatama. Hmm. And then, so the same principle applies to the bona fide spiritual master. Prabhupada says, or in other words, the loving representative of the Lord is more kind and more easy to approach. A sinful soul cannot approach the Lord directly, but such a sinful man can very easily approach a pure devotee of the Lord. And if one agrees to put himself under the guidance of such a devotee of the Lord, he can also understand the signs of God and also become transcendental pure devotee of the Lord. So here you can see how Srila Prabhupada is putting these words. If one agrees to put himself under the guidance of such a devotee of the Lord. So what does it mean? Whose responsibility it is to receive guidance?
One's own.
Students.
Yes, the student or the disciple. So it is not that the guru is going to come and give the guidance without asking. So one has to seek guidance. If one seeks guidance, then one will get. If one does not seek guidance, only how one will get. So therefore the responsibility always lies on the disciple. So it's not that we don't make any efforts and the guidance is automatically going to come. So in that connection we also have that beautiful purport. You can read it later or we'll discuss it some other time. I'm sure we discussed it already. 5:12:14. That is in the case of Bharat Maharaj. So how Bharat Maharaj, one of his main reasons for falling down is what?
He did not put himself into association under the guidance.
He didn't receive instructions from a spiritual master. He didn't receive guidance from a spiritual master. That's the only reason. Prabhupada writes it very clearly. So therefore, it is our responsibility to seek guidance when we are in difficulty. So not that I don't seek guidance and one expects some magic to happen. No, it doesn't happen. Therefore, the association is so important. And again, the same point, being in association doesn't mean that one is simply living together. That is not association. One has to take advantage of the association, or one has to take the benefit of the association. By seeking guidance, by seeking help, by getting inspired from those who are enthusiastic. So one has to take advantage of the association that is available. So if one doesn't take advantage, what can one do? Prabhupada gives the example, just like bright sun outside. So if one is sitting inside and covering oneself with blanket and saying, where is the sun? Who can help? Who can help? No. So this is again very there also in the verse Kirato Namra Pulinda. So there also the verse it comes to Yad apashraya ashraya, correct? Ashraya means taking shelter of those who have taken shelter. That is the devotees. So the same point here also is. And here he's saying that even those who are birds and beasts, of course, in the Chatushloki also same thing comes. But even those who are birds and beasts can get advantage. Tiryak Jana means those are not even human beings. But then they also can get benefit if they surrender. Okay, text 47. So, right, so this is this section from 40 to 46 is how the Lord's mercy is required to understand His greatness. And so those who are surrendered, then they attract the Lord's mercy. And then one will be able to understand to the degree the Lord reveals. Now the next section, 47 to 49, is the superiority of Bhagwan over Brahman and Paramatma realizations. 47. What is realized that the absolute Brahman is full of unlimited bliss without grief. That is certainly the ultimate phase of the supreme enjoy the personality of Godhead. He is eternally void of all disturbances and fearless. He is complete consciousness as opposed to matter. Uncontaminated and without distinctions, he is the principal primal cause of all causes and effects, in whom there is no sacrifice for fruitive activities, in whom the illusory energy does not stand. Okay, so this is the realization of the absolute truth. So again, Prabhupada explains the realization in three phases: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Okay. Prabhupada is describing about, especially he's focusing on the realization of Bhagavan. So I'm reading from the third paragraph. The Supreme Lord is the supreme soul of everything and therefore is the supreme conception, and therefore in the supreme conception, affection is realized. So as we know, so there are these three phases of realization: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So by realization of the impersonal Brahman, what is realized? Only the Sat feature. Paramatma realization, Sat and Chit. But only in Bhagwan realization there is realization of Ananda. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So that is Ananda, or affection. Prabhupada is translating that as affection. Affection is realized. And the conception of affection is due to the relationship of soul to soul. A father is affectionate to his son because there's some relationship of nearness between the son and the father. But that sort of affection in the material world is full of integrity, faults. When the personality of Godhead is met, the fullness of affection becomes manifested because of the reality of the affectionate relationship. He is not the object of affection by material tinges of body and mind, but he is the full, naked, uncontaminated object of affection for all living entities because he is the supersoul or Paramatma within everyone's heart. In the liberated state of affairs, the full-fledged affection for the Lord is awakened. Okay, so when one comes to the stage of praying, then that full affection, full love for the Lord, that is awakened. As such, there is an unlimited flow of everlasting happiness without the fear of its being broken, as we have experienced here in the material world. The relationship with the Lord is never broken, thus there is no grief and no fear. Okay, this is the difference between the happiness of the material world and the happiness of the spiritual world. In the material world, what happens? Everything is broken. All relationships are broken, and so therefore happiness is also broken. So that is what everyone fears in this world, correct? So any relationship, everyone knows it's not going to last forever. There's always the fear of the relationship being broken. But in the case of spiritual relationships with the Supreme Lord, one knows that that relationship is eternal. And so therefore, only in that relationship one can experience happiness to the fullest extent. Otherwise, in the material world, any relationship, there are faults, there are flaws, there is limitedness, and all these problems are there in relationships of this material world. But in spiritual relationships with Bhagavan, one knows that the relationship is eternal, and therefore the experience of happiness in that relationship is unbroken. And then he says, such happiness is inexplicable by words, and there can be no attempt to generate such happiness by fruitive activities, by arrangements and sacrifices. But we must also know that happiness, unbroken happiness, exchanged with the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead, as described in this verse, transcends the impersonal conception of the Upanishads. Okay, so that happiness can only be experienced in relationship with the Supreme Lord. Okay. And that is only possible with spiritual senses. That's what Prabhupada explains in the later part. So therefore, the last paragraph. In every way, the authorities have recommended purification of the senses from the material conception. In the material world, the senses are manipulated for individual and personal satisfaction, whereas in the spiritual world, the senses are properly used for the purpose for which they were originally meant, namely the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Such sensual activities are natural, and therefore sense gratification there is uninterrupted and unbroken by material contamination, because the senses are spiritually purified. And such satisfaction of the senses is equally shared by the transcendental reciprocators. So that means when one can experience that as further down. Brahma Saukyam. What is the Lord Rishabdev saying? Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhyet yasmat brahma saukyam tva anantam. So if one wants to experience that Brahma Sukh, transcendental happiness, what is required? Shuddhyet. One has to become purified. To the degree one becomes purified, to that degree, with purified senses, one can experience the transcendental happiness. And that transcendental happiness is anantam, unlimited. And that is only possible on the platform of Bhagavan realization. Text 48. In such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation as performed by the jnanis and yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly king Indra forgoes the trouble to dig a well. He's giving an example. So why will Indra take the trouble to dig a well? He's in control of the rain. So similarly, one who has come to Bhagavan realization, then he is not interested in all the other processes of the jnanis and yogis because he experiences the highest transcendental happiness. And 49, the personality of God is the supreme master of everything auspicious because the results of whatever actions are performed by the living being in either the material or spiritual existence are awarded by the Lord. As such, he is the ultimate benefactor. Every individual living entity is unborn, and therefore, even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists exactly like air within the body. So he is saying that the soul always remains, and so therefore, the soul is always able to have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. And so therefore, Prabhupada has explained that since the soul is eternal, so therefore even if one does not complete devotional service in this life, next lifetime what happens? Bhagavad Gita? Shujinam Shrimatam Geyo. I think so that's what happens. So that is how the devotional service always continues. And we're going to the last section. Okay, somebody can read the translations. Last section, 50 to 53. So now Brahma is telling Narada to expand on this knowledge that he has received.
My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of phenomenal and numinous existences.
Continue.
51. O Narada, the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of its diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself.
Okay, so Brahmaji is requesting now to expand the science. And Prabhupada is explaining how the science is expanded in parampara. So initially the Lord spoke only 4 verses to Brahma. Brahma expanded and gave it to Narada. And Narada further expands and gives it to Vyasadeva. So that's how it comes along in parampara, and that's how the whole subject matter gets expanded. Okay.
52. Please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of God Hari, the super soul of every living being, and the summum bonum, source of all energies.
Right, so here important point is he's saying Yata haro bhagavati nrinam bhaktir bhavishyati. So expand the science in such a way that people will get what? Bhakti, not simply some theoretical knowledge. But the important thing is by studying the Bhagavatam, importantly one must develop bhakti. So therefore Prabhupada writes first the sentence of the purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so and the next paragraph, Prabhupada writes, as we've already explained, Srimad Bhagavatam is so scientifically presented that any sincere student of this great science will be able to understand the science of God simply by reading it with attention, or simply by regularly hearing it from the bona fide speaker. So one must read with attention. Morning also, Vishnu was talking about absorption, being absorbed, reading with absorption. Happiness in complete perfection without hindrance can be achieved only by our devotional relationship with Him. And it's only by His association that we can get free from distressful material existence. And the last sentence, Narada was never advised to preach the principles of Bhagavatam to earn a livelihood. He was ordered by spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. So, not like the professional reciters, just for livelihood. 53.
The Lord's activities in association with his different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If it is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord.
Yeah. Shrunvata Shraddhaya Nityam. So one has to hear with faith and regularly. Of course, Shraddhaya Prabhupada translates as with devotion. So here, Srila Prabhupada is explaining what is the need to understand these topics of creation. So in the first paragraph, Prabhupada is writing, the Lord's activities in relation to the external energy and the internal energy are equally good. On the other hand, those who are not completely free from the clutches of the Lord's external energy should devoutly hear regularly about the activities of the Lord in relation with the external energy. They should not foolishly jump up to the activities of the internal energy like the Ras Leela. Topics in the next paragraph. Then he's talking about how Govardhan Leela and all that. And then further down he says, topics like the Ras Leela are meant for the liberated souls and not for the conditioned souls. The conditioned souls therefore must hear with appreciation, devotion, the Lord's pastimes in relationship with the external energy, and such acts are as good as the hearing of Ras Leela in the liberated stage. A conditioned soul should not imitate the activities of liberated souls. Lord Sri Chaitanya never indulged in hearing the Ras Leela with ordinary men. And that's what he says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Science of God. The first 9 cantos prepare the ground for hearing the 10th canto. This will be further explained in the last chapter of this canto. And the last statement, by reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as a scientific presentation, the conditioned souls will gradually be promoted to the highest status of transcendent knowledge after being freed from the illusory energy based on sense. So therefore for conditioned souls it's equally important to read about the Srishti Lila, the Leela of creation. This is as important and equally potent as the Ras Leela. No difference. So all these activities are also activities of the Lord and they are equally important. Thus in the Bhagavad Purports of the second canto, 7th chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. Fine. So when do we begin class again? 2:30. Right. Okay, fine. So we begin at 2:30. We'll begin the 8th chapter. 8th chapter is again a list of questions. So we'll rapidly go through the 8th chapter and then move on to the 9th chapter. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Radha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा सो प्रभु जी टेस्ट का कैसे करेंगे 3 टेस्ट कर रहे हैं दिस करंट 8th यूनिट देन 9th यूनिट एंड 10th यूनिट सो 3 ही कर लें या 2 टेस्ट करें व्हाटएवर यू डू इट डिसाइड एक दिन छोड़ के करें
तीनों करो एक दिन पढ़ने के लिए तो
बाकी यूनिट क्या कहते हैं इनका प्लान है जो एक प्रोजेक्ट कह रहे हैं ट्यूसडे थर्सडे सैटरडे तीनों दिन इवनिंग में 1 टेस्ट
एक दिन गैप तो पढ़ने
तो ठीक है ये वाला कितने यूनिट हां और भी नहीं तो
एक ही साथ आखिरी में सब कर देते हैं
वो तो मैं
हो जैसे होगा
ओके और भी सजेशन है देखो विप्रो जी कह रहे हैं ट्यूसडे थर्सडे सैटरडे इवनिंग 7 to 8:30 डेली तीनों दिन ट्यूसडे थर्सडे सैटरडे तीनों डेज so any other suggestion any devotee has because now what we find will then will not change because क्या होता है ना बाकी devotees अपना वैसे प्लानिंग करते हैं शेड्यूल फिर बाद में अगर चेंज करते हैं वो devotees कहते हैं प्रभु जी आप चेंज क्योंकि हम अपना बाकी सर्विस का प्लानिंग वैसे किया था इसलिए अभी जो फाइनल करेंगे प्लीज फाइनल करेंगे चेंज नहीं करेंगे any other option please tell we will do like this no other option huh? okay Saturday सुबह शाम अच्छा थर्सडे वाला सैटरडे सुबह कर लो सी विदिन यू वांट दैट तो डिवोटीज प्रूव कह रहे हैं कि थर्सडे वाला सैटरडे मॉर्निंग को कर लो क्लास से पहले जस्ट क्लास से पहले मींस समथिंग लाइक 10 to 11 15 ऐसे कुछ ये कर रहा है
वैसे क्लास सैटरडे को क्लास है
सैटरडे को भी क्लास है फुल
सैटरडे भी क्लास है
संडे को
संडे
कोई
को
गया
तो प्रीचिंग होगा ना लोकल संडे
सो कितने डिवोटीज कहते हैं तो वो एक सेंटर से
ट्यूसडे के बर्थडे के टाइम
ट्यूसडे तो वही लास्ट यूनिट ही है ना वो तो ओके पर क्वेश्चन थोड़े से क्वेश्चन है उसके बहुत थोड़े 40 कुछ क्वेश्चन है बस लास्ट 7th यूनिट में तो वी हैड 90 प्लस क्वेश्चन नाउ दिस यूनिट हैज only 40 प्लस एनी अदर सजेशंस जो अभी तक जो है ट्यूसडे थर्सडे सैटरडे मेरे को दिख रहा है और कोई सजेशन किसी का है एक संडे का आ रहा था कोई कह रहे संडे को करना है Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, then probably everybody is telling. Huh?
नहीं होगा इससे नहीं होगा
वो तो सभी नोटिस कर रहे हैं कि मुझे नहीं चलेगा। हाँ,
मुझे ट्यूसडे मींस कल
हाँ, tomorrow evening. लास्ट यूनिट है जो अभी जो ट्यूसडे मींस पिछले वाला यूनिट है। चल क्वेश्चन से बहुत थोड़े से क्वेश्चंस हैं जस्ट माइंड में ऐसे फील ना करो कि अरे बैक टू बैक टेस्ट है अरे ग्रोन अप फैमिली क्या क्या टेस्ट दिया आपने इंजीनियरिंग में और क्या क्या एग्जाम्स दिए बताओ ये तो 5वीं क्लास का बच्चा ही पढ़ लेगा
most people study when the exam period on them
मोस्ट पीपल को जो सर प्रभु ट्यूसडे थर्सडे सैटरडे के अलावा कोई ऑप्शन है अदरवाइज वी फाइनलाइज नाउ हाँ So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, then okay? Okay, Ruth. Then we'll do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, evening 7 to 8:15, 8:30 p.m. Tomorrow evening onwards. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. ठीक है? So Tuesday means 30th January tomorrow, then 1st February and 3rd February. These 3 exams will be like that. Okay? And we will not change it now, Prabhuji. Please don't come and ask for any change.
Timing?
Evening, Prabhuji, same 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Okay. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.